And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Ladies Professional Racquetball Tour. My name's Tim Baghurst, joined as ever by Commissioner TJ Bombaugh and special guest this evening, Coach Jim Winterton. Coach, thanks so much for joining us. If you wouldn't mind, before we get going with the schedule this evening, just give us a little bit of a history of yourself and how you got to where you are today.
All right. So way back before any of you were born, I was in the military and I was stationed in Germany, and I was trying to get in shape to go out for the base football team. And I had a lot of incentive to go on this team because nobody told me I could make it. And so I was working out pretty hard and getting bored. And somebody said there's this new game called, believe it or not, it was called paddle rackets. It wasn't called racquetball. And was Joe Sobek, sold the game to the USO. I started playing in 1967, believe it or not. And when I got back to the United States, after I got out of the military, I wanted to find racquetball courts in a college where I could play football. And finding racquetball courts was pretty difficult. And when you did find one, if you went in to play, like I'd say, okay, Tim or TJ, let's play a game of racquetball. And you might say, well, what do you play to? Do you guys play to 18? Do you play to 21? Do you play to 14? What do you play to? I don't ever remember 15 ever being an option. And so there was no rule book. So there are different rules in different places. And the game kind of resembled ninja wrestling or something. I mean, the object was to run in front of the other person and take the shot in the back so they couldn't make the shot. And the ball was really slow. And I remember I played this staff sergeant in the Air Force, and this guy was also the quarterback on our football team. And he was kind of a mentor for me in many different ways. But he would go like this, like he was aiming for this corner, and then he would hit the ball in the other corner. And the ball was so slow back then, you could do that, you know. And then I got back to the States and I played, and I got done playing college football. I wanted to start playing tournaments. And one of my first tournaments I went to, I watched a men's pro stop, and I watched Jerry Halatier shove Charlie Brumfield and shove him back and start taking swings. And referee ran down on the court and went, yes, I can do this. This is my game. I just got done playing 4 years of college football. You know, I'm ready for racquetball. That's the way the game was played back then. So that's how I got started in it. You know how I got started in coaching? That's even a better story. I'm teaching school, and this little 6th grade kid comes in, and he says, I'm going to kick your butt in racquetball. And you ever played? No. Well, how are you going to kick my butt? He says, take me over to the JCC right now, and I'll show you. So I went over there and killed him, 21-0, 21-0, 21-0, and he wouldn't get off the court. And finally, it was 21-2. Then it was 21-5. I wanted to go home. He wanted to keep playing. And I realized that kid's going to be good. And I got to learn all I can learn about racquetball because I don't want to give this kid up to somebody. So I brought this kid named Mike Levine from ground zero all the way up to pros. And he had some good wins. I mean, he beat Ruben Gonzalez twice when Ruben was in his prime. And he was in the quarterfinals of a men's pro stop when he was 16. So that's how I got started.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're talking with Coach Jim Winterton, and we're having other guests coming at around the 9:30 mark. But if you have questions for Coach, now's your chance to get them in the chat box. I'm going to turn it over to TJ. TJ, I know you have some questions of Coach, so I'll let you take over.
All right. Thanks, Tim. All right. Well, first question, you said Mike Levine. Any relation to Robin Levine?
That's a good question. No, but I have a connection with Robin Levine. Robin Levine. Okay, so I left teaching to make $1 million in racquetball. Yeah, that worked out great. So I moved downstate, down to Poughkeepsie, New York, a company called All Sport, and their sister club was Fishkill, and there was this little twerp named Robin Levine, and she was working out like a maniac on Nautilus. And one of my greatest regrets in life was that I never coached Robin until she got on the USA team. And Robin and I talked a lot in later years. There were some things going on that I didn't even know about with an ex-wife, which would make great entertainment. Well, I'm not going there here. But Robin was a great player, great person. I really liked Robin.
Well, thank you for answering all that. What I'm going to do, I just have a few questions for you. Just rapid fire questions, just whatever comes to mind.
It's going to be what movie I like and walks on the beach and all that.
But it could be, but I don't think I added those to your list. So first question, what's the most interesting thing you've done during the stay-at-home quarantine?
Oh, wow. Interesting thing. Basically, done nothing interesting than watch like Ozark on Netflix. And by the way, if you haven't watched that, that's awesome.
I do watch
and actually loading up videos. Believe it or not, I'm busier than I ever thought I would be because of a number of things. One being this online elite camp that we're going to try to run. So I'm gathering up old videos. And since I can't go to the court and shoot new video, I'm going back in my archives where I've got tons of old video. And so I've loaded up over 100 videos on my website. I've loaded up some video lectures that I have, over 5 hours of lectures actually on the complete game. So we're doing that. And in the last week, the junior team coach applications came out. So I'm filling out recommendations for my athletes and trying to get them situated so they can get they get motivated and keep practicing. So that's pretty much it. And watch Netflix.
All racquetball and Netflix. All right, here's an easy one. What's your hometown?
All right, I was born in upstate New York in this small farming town. I grew up on a farm, and I mean, we're talking getting up at 5:30 in the morning, doing chores before you go to school. Try to wipe the cow manure off your feet before you go to school, and all that. And today, the town was called Vernon Center. It was in upstate New York. Today, they spell it Vernon Center with the centers R-E, not E-R.
Fancy.
And they have some historical buildings that are being preserved, including my one-room 4-grade schoolhouse where I went to school.
Wow.
That's right. So, yeah, so the big city, I went to a small high school and was centralized school and Central New York called VBS. And little side note there, I flew back from the U.S. Open 3 years ago and to make an induction into the Hall of Fame for my best friend in high school, football player who had a big influence on my life. And he died tragically very young in a car accident. And I had the honor for the family of introducing him into the high school Hall of Fame. So that's pretty cool.
Very cool. So when you were 12 years old, Coach, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, that was easy. I was going to be a pro baseball player. I learned to switch hit. Like Mickey Mantle was my idol. And I had a broomstick. I would go to get the cows, and I would throw stones up and hit them right-handed and then hit them left-handed. And I was sure I was going to be a baseball player. It would have come true if it hadn't been for the curveball. The first time I saw a curveball, I hit the dirt. I'm a sophomore in high school on the JV team, and I heard the catcher say, "Hey, Yogi, ain't you ever seen a curveball?" That was it. I was throwing the shot put in track, and I went to football.
Oh boy, trouble with the curve. All right. Uh, so, well, you mentioned baseball, but if you had any other career other than coaching and baseball, what might you be doing now?
Probably coaching football. In fact, 2003, after the Pan Ams, as a USA coach, I decided that I was going to quit racquetball and coach football. And I started coaching football and just threw away racquetball. I'd had it. A whole bunch of things had happened and I always said when I coached the USA team, if I ever got to the point where the team did not want me, I didn't want to be involved with it. The team wanted me, I'm involved with it. But I had a bunch of people that it just wasn't fun anymore. In fact, in 2003 at the Pan Ams, I was handing out towels. And I brought in Drew Kostick and Fran Davis to help me coach. And because I'd gone to Mexico and beat the United States, that was my sin. See? So I thought, you know what? I won with the United States. Everybody says it's easy. Let me go see if I can win with Mexico. So I win with Mexico. And they still didn't say I was a good coach. They said, I stole all the secrets and I do this and I do that. So I said, I'm quitting. And then I started getting phone calls from people, including this guy from Austin, Texas, called me. And that's how I got back into it.
So what's one of your worst moments as a coach?
Worst moments.
One of your worst moments.
Wow. I'm going to get all girly.
Careful.
I wish you had asked that. I've never had a bad moment.
Oh.
I love what I do. Never. I mean, TJ, you play, you and Tim play. You guys are players. We all been there. We work our butts off and we think we're going to win and we don't. And the frustration that athletes have to deal with. I wish you hadn't asked that question.
Okay, I'll go next question.
But
what's one of your best moments as a coach?
Oh, wow. See, that's unfair to the athletes. There's so many matches that going back to, these are matches that nobody thought you could win. I guess Kim Russell Weselinchik and Ronda Racich being down 11-4 game 2 after getting beat 15-2 game 1 and winning the Pan Am qualifier. When I had people jumping up trying to influence the referee, including the current USA team coach, and I told him off, and I got censored for telling the coach off. I couldn't believe it, because when I coached, you weren't allowed to do that, So that's one match that stuck in my head. Kane, I've had so many moments with Kane. The big one was when he came off his suspension in Denver. To this day, I can't believe that what he did. I mean, he had to play 4 extra matches. They put him on right wall glass in the sun. Every one of his matches was like 10 in the morning, and so it seemed anyways. And he had to beat number 1. He had to beat number 2. He had to beat them all in order to win that thing. And there were so many moments in there that he showed me a lot that tournament. But again, with the USA team, we had so many upset wins where people didn't give us a chance. And I can think of the Pan Ams in '95 where we had a superstar team. Somebody that you may know that other people don't know, a woman, but I don't know her married name now, Tammy Brockbank.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we were in Colombia, and we were getting it was a day off, and I spent the whole day with her on the court, and we worked on mental stuff and situational shots and so on and so forth. And she took out Christy Van East. I think it was Christy, who was the number 1 seed and favored over her by a ton. Cheryl Godinez's win in '99 in the Pan Ams was unbelievable, beating Christie in a tiebreaker. And there's so many matches like that I've been involved with that were just unbelievable. So it's unfair to the athletes to pick. Oh, I tell you one thing that sticks in my mind. Ruben Gonzalez asked me for a serve. and I'm like so nervous because Ruben, I've known him all my life. And I'm going, oh my God, I don't want to let Ruben down. And I gave him a serve and it worked. Or I wouldn't be telling the story right now. So.
Well, I thank you for answering those questions. It's obvious that you're very passionate about coaching. So I appreciate you putting your heart out there. I'm going to turn it back to Tim, and we're going to get some questions from our.
You're going to make me go through a box of Kleenex here, you know? Sorry.
All right. Well, now's your opportunity. If you have some questions for Coach Winterton, put them in your chat box, and we'll make sure that we get them to him. One of the first questions we have is kind of looking at the current situation, Coach, and it's, what do you think about the impact of COVID-19 on racquetball, both recreational and professional?
Hey, Tony, how you doing, man? Good to see you. I wrote on my, I do a tip of the day for people that don't know every day. And I took two or three people that I know, including a nurse at Ground Zero in New York City, and I posted that. And one of the things that she said that gave me chills, 20 and 30-year-olds she watched die with no pre-existing conditions. She also said that if you were playing racquetball and you touched the ball of your opponent, well, you might as well go up and hug him, and because it's the same thing. The virus is so contagious, and it's going to have a huge impact. And I was saying before we went on the air, Frank Tedonio helps me run the tournament in Arizona. We're looking into CDC guidelines, and we're looking at literally having to sanitize the balls during the match. We're looking at all sorts of things we're going to have to do. And the players don't think there's anything wrong. They're out there playing doubles, and I get it. I'm healthy. I'm young. I got young people at home. Nothing can go wrong. But it doesn't work like that. According to the nurse in New York City, her exact words were, "We have no idea what this virus is. And every day the protocol changes, and it's a dangerous thing." So that's why we did the elite camp this year. I just couldn't go there. I worry about my wife and other friends and people that I know. Our next door neighbor has a real serious health problem. You just don't want to be carrying this thing around, So I don't know if I answered your question, but basically I got no idea. I'm just trying to be careful. I did my first lesson this week with a left-handed glove and a right-handed glove and a mask and spraying Lysol in the air and everything else. And I got a private court that I found in someone's house, and it's an expensive proposition. I'm not going to make any money for a couple months if I keep working there, but it's safe for me. And that's what I'm in my family. And that's what I'm trying to do, is be safe. And I recommend everybody else do that also.
Dick Gedney has a good question. He says, currently and historically, can you point to certain intangibles that set the very best apart from the merely great, or is it God-given?
I've been asked this one a lot too. Tim, you're in education. Are you familiar with Lozanov? A guy named Sergei Lozanov, with teaching with the senses and everything? I don't know if you're familiar with this or not, but this man's theory was that you learn 98% of what you know, or maybe I'm exaggerating, 90% of what you know by the time you go to public school, because you use all the senses. You look at little babies, they grab in your face, they're tasting, they're putting things in their mouth, and that's how they learn, right? But when you get to public education, and I'm not, this isn't a slam on Tim. I was in education 29 years as a public 8th grade school teacher. So when you get to the classroom, you're using visual and auditory senses, and you're not catering to the other senses, musical sense and kinesthetic sense and so on. So Kane is one of those guys that was allowed to coach himself. And there's been a lot written on this subject that the best of the best weren't well coached. They coached themselves. And when he first asked me to coach him, my first thought was, don't mess this up, Winterton. Do not mess this up. And I'd like to tell you I didn't, but I did. I went right in and started to talk percentages, and I got whoa, wait a minute, Winterton. Wait a minute. This is what I do, and this is why I do it, and you're not going to change it. All right? I can work with that.
So how then do you work with somebody like that?
Okay, so the actor Tom Berenger, right? Is that his name? He asked me about that, and I said, "You're an actor. Who directed Sir Laurence Olivier?" He went on the set, right? Nobody said, "Oh no, you got to do it like this," right? And I said, that's what a great actor, a great artist. He is an artist, and he is best. And in fact, I'm coaching so many athletes that are like, I call them birds in a cage. I want to get them out. This morning, I used the term with some athletes called eagle in a box. Open the box up, let the eagle fly. Quit being so, And Kane is one of those players that it's like the best of the best. I've coached tough players. I've coached creative players. I've coached well-gifted athletes, and I've coached tough mental athletes. And I've never coached a creative athlete like him, and someone that was all of that in one package, and amazing. He's an amazing athlete.
Well,
by the way, too.
I want to follow up a little bit, because you talked about the fact that, this is how he does things. This is how he wants to do things. How then do you actually coach him?
Oh, all right. I would say, all right. So everybody's going back to my education experience. I had to motivate 8th graders to like English, right? So I had to learn how to do that. And I had to learn so many different personalities, so many different kinds of people. I learned to react. When I first started working with him, I had several people tell me, you'll never last with him. Nobody's ever lasted longer than a year with him. He tells them off. And in my first conversations with him, I realized here's a guy that wants to win so bad. And he's going to be great. In fact, one of the goals I had written down on a sheet of paper, I asked him his goals, and I asked him some personal questions. But one of the goals I wrote down, the greatest that ever played. I literally wrote that down 13, 14 years ago. And I asked him how good he thought he could be. And I got the answer, you don't know me that well. I don't want you to think I'm cocky. I don't want you to think I'm conceited, but I think I can be the greatest that ever played the game. And I said, well, I'll cross that one off. We're on the same page. And so mostly with Kane, I watch situations, and it isn't any different than anybody else as far as shot selection, what works, what isn't working, and little things at the level that the men and women pros are at, that, you watch the game. There's such little things that make the difference between winning and losing. And so now we gotten to the point where a couple years ago at the U.S. Open during a timeout, I could say, hey, do you remember when we did this in this city back in, 2012, where this worked against this opponent? Oh yeah, used it and it worked, and it turned the game around. But I mean, because we got a long history. I remember one time he was playing Jack Huzak in Seattle, and he was getting beat. And that Seattle club, TJ, you're familiar with it, where you got to run down. And I was in that little World War II pillbox behind the center court, and I had to run up. And anyways, Jack had been playing doubles, and his backhand was lights out. Normally, his backhand wasn't like that. And I just said, hey, he's been playing doubles, so his backhand's lights out. Let's get to the forehand side, and that worked. So that's the kind of thing. And we're on the same page. We're really on the same page. It's when I watched the Michael Jordan special, right? What Phil Jackson kept saying to Michael Jordan, I heard it over and over again. You're the man. They're going to follow you. You're the one. You're the, it's when you coach someone like that. It's kind of interesting. I've coached a couple doubles matches with the women, with Paola and Samantha, and I do see a similar positive mindset. I guess you'd call it no fear thing with Paola. So also, I have to give her due. And so Rocky Carson was alive at any other time, kind of like Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali. I mean, poor Joe Frazier came along with Muhammad Ali, and Rocky, would be the greatest player of all time, one for Kane. His record speaks for itself.
Let me stop and kind of follow on then, because you talked about coaching Kane and what you've done there, but you coach a lot of players, and so somebody who maybe doesn't know you very well or know how you work as a coach might say, hey, how does that work? The fact that you're coaching 4 players in the quarterfinals, how are you going to do that? Isn't there a conflict of interest? I'm sure that's a question you get quite a bit.
All right. So if I ask anyone, their toughest opponent is the one that they're looking at in the mirror every morning. Mine too, right? And that opponent is the one you have to beat. You're playing the ball. You're not playing a person. It makes no difference who you're playing. It's the same game with the same rules. So I coach. I like to say I coach how to play the game, not what shot to hit. That comes later, after you have the skills to play, to make the shots. So you can adapt from point to point and game to game and match to match. If you don't have those skills, what you're doing is you're developing a game plan. What's the game plan? I hear that thing a lot. Well, my players kind of look at me kind of weird, like a game plan. Like they might have a weakness they go after. I mean, for example, somebody's got a weak backhand, but at the pro level, if they got a weaker backhand, you can't just attack that backhand. They'll kill you. They'll get used to it within 3 or 4 points. You have to make the court bigger by serving the forehand and the backhand. So you got to have the skills to be able to do that. And if you don't have the skills, you're not going to win. And so my players, and let me just give a shout out to these pros. I mean, Kane, Adam Manilla, Thomas Carter. I've got women. I got Erika, Rhonda, Samantha Salas, Lucia Gonzalez, Angelica Barrios, and Mela Sama, who I don't think Mela's going to play any pro slots, but she might show up in a few. She's going to play for fun. I had the pleasure of coaching her. I probably left somebody out. Did I mention Carter? It's hard for me to get them all in, but we're all kind of like a family. And to that, I want them to have success. I got a phone call from Erika and Adam about a month ago, kind of sheepish, we're going to start this online business, and we don't know how you're going to think about that. And I said, I think it's great. I really do. You should have told me sooner. I would have definitely encouraged you to do it, because you've learned a lot of racquetball. And that's another thing. My players have to learn racquetball. And they have to teach racquetball because they learn racquetball. They learn how to feel the game, how to change tempo. They learn it. They have to in order to work it. And I want nothing but success. Kane, I promote him all I can. I promote the Manillas. Thomas Carter is unbelievable coach, and he's doing a great job. And I've got new people joining me. I'm kind of excited by this kid, Jeremy Dixon, who just graduated from Baldwin Wallace. Nice kid. he's going to work with me, and I can't wait. I hope I can live long enough. I got juniors that are going to be spectacular teachers. Because they stay with it and they're getting pretty good. So,
well, you mentioned Erika Manilla, and let me bring her in, and also Dr. Joe Shattuck. Good timing, good segue. Well done, Coach. If you wouldn't mind, we'll talk. Dr. Shattuck, Joe, we'll start with you. If you wouldn't mind, just introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're doing now.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, my name's Joe Shattuck. For every veterans of the tour, I played the pro tour for 12 years straight and missed only one tournament. Stayed in the top 10 for 10 years, and I had the privilege of being coached by Coach Winterton. In fact, can I tell a story real quick? I was 17. I was all knees and elbows, just a mess. No skill, no grace, just scrap. And spent my last couple $100 to fly up to Syracuse to train with Winterton. And the first thing he does is put me on the court and has me hit dropping hits. And in my mind, I'm like, I cannot believe I spent $500 in a weekend. I'm penniless to come up here and watch some old guy hit forehand. And he takes my racket and he does. Well, for one, I didn't switch my grip and I didn't wear a glove because that's the way I learned, and that was the right way apparently. And he just made a simple adjustment about like this. And he made me switch my grip. And so for the next 6 months, I practiced stick shift. And every time I shifted, I would let go of my racket and do forehand, and then shift and do a backhand. I actually cut off the racket. Anyway, so within that, I went from, I don't know, 39th on the tour or something to 13th. And that was the kind of the beginning of the beginning for me. So that's my experience with JW. And he's been the largest influence in my racquetball career for sure.
Thanks.
It's true.
Erika, I'm going to turn it over to you. Introduce yourself a little bit. I know Coach already has, but go for it.
Awesome. So I'm Erika Manilla, as I said, and actually this is a pretty cool situation for me here because Joe Shattuck was actually one of my very first coaches as a junior player when, how old was I, Joe? Probably 7 years old when I started working with her. And then similar to Joe, I went over and started working with Coach. My brother and I, our parents flew us out to see him around age 14, I believe. And we went into the court with him, and all of a sudden he goes, hey, I want you to forget everything you know. And Adam and I are like, we are, I think at this time we probably had 6 national championships, junior national championships underneath our belt. And we're like, what do you mean you want us to forget everything? And we went back home, and I was like, I can't work with Coach. He wants me to forget everything I know. And before you know it, we were eating actually spaghetti dinner, Adam and I. And Adam jumped up out of his seat at the dinner table and was like, I get it. I see what he means by whatever it was. It was actually keep your forearm above your elbow was something that he said. And then ever since then, we've been working with Coach, and he's taught us so much. And now I have the honor to be working with him. So.
Now, TJ, I know you know Joe obviously a lot better than I do. Talk a little bit about Joe's career and also how she became a doctor and what she's doing a little bit now. And then Joe, maybe you can talk a little bit more about it as well.
Well, I'm going to leave the doctor part to her because she became a doctor once she left playing the pro tour. All I remember is, some of the things that I appreciated so much on playing the women's tour was just the relationships we had off the court and how many friendships we built. And Joe, I consider you a very good friend of mine. We also had some serious battles. I remember some five-game matches on the court with you multiple times, but always a lot of fun. I mean, you were true professional on and off the court. So, yeah, I mean, I'll leave it to you. You kind of lead into what you're up to these days.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Another quick story. I don't remember if it was the last time we played, but Rachel Gelman and I, Boom Boom, went to Jimmy John's at some tournament. It might have been that popular one in DC. And we told the cab to leave because Jimmy John's is so quick. So we're going to get a sandwich and then run back out. We run back out and the guy left, like the cab left. I'm like, what the hell? So I sprinted, you know, it's probably like 2 miles back to the club. And you were in the court already about to get forfeited. And so I just got on the court and played. And that was a fun memory. And I was playing you. That's why I remember that. I don't know what happened, who won or anything, but
I probably won.
I was going to say I probably won, but I'm not competitive or anything.
Sounds like a rematch is in the cards. What can I say?
Right. So shooting ahead, near the end of my career, I think I was 39. I was like, I'm getting a little bit older. So I went and got a master's in sports science in sports psychophysiology. And that was right near the end of my career. Then I did some research at the UC Anschutz. And then I went and got my PhD in neuroscience studying motor learning because obviously when I played, no skill. And to go from not knowing how to do something to knowing how to do something, that muscle memory it was fascinating for me. So my dissertation was on the neural substrates of motor learning. I'd like to start now with a 16-page excerpt of my dissertation. I'm kidding. So there's that. So today, I don't know how much time we have. So today we have a clip that I would like to introduce. And it's of a device that I've been working on for probably 7 years. It's called the Kinesthetic Awareness Training System. And think about this, coach and anybody else who coaches, everybody's used the freeze technique, right? Where you're like, okay, hold your arm, okay, freeze. And you try to remember that position. And now movement educators and coaches and physical therapists, we all use words and metaphors and pictures to try to get someone to experience a sensation. But in a court, trying to get an athlete to move a certain way, feel that, and then replicate it. And they'd get it once or twice and then lose it, do it again and once or twice. And in my mind, I wish there's got to be a way to sort of capture that moment. And that's how this device came about. Erika is one of the few who have actually used it, and we have some prototypes out in the world. And I'll let her talk a little bit about it, maybe after the clip or before the clip, whatever you want to do.
Whichever. I think the clip would kind of show everyone what it is, but to help introduce it, this is something that I've been playing racquetball for 17 years now. So the first tournament was when I was 6 years old, and we went to a junior national tournament, my brother and I. And this was the very first time where I was like, whoa, I actually don't keep my chest up when shooting. Something so simple, what all of us, especially us pro athletes, it's like, hey, make sure you have your chest up and you're not always hunched over when hitting, right? Just a common thing that we know. And I put the device on and I was like, well, I'm actually not as good as I thought that I was at it. So it was just absolutely fascinating.
All right, great. Let's go ahead and play the clip. It's a 2-part clip. So
Can I stop you real quick before you do that, Tim? Let me introduce it. This is a clip where, because there's some things that don't make sense. There is Erika is in Chandler, Arizona. Coach Winterton is in a different part of Arizona. I'm in Colorado, and I think you see Adam briefly on there. He's in California. And what you'll see on the left side of the screen is the mobile app that goes with the sensor. And on the right side of the screen is Erika doing some posture practice. The CAT sensor, which looks like this or that, depending, is actually right on her sternum. So it's measuring the kinematic values of this plane and this plane. And it's kind of windy. So the audio is pretty good, but just bear with it. But this is JW coaching her in some posture technique.
All right, let's play the video.
Beats, does it. Beats, does it. We're good there.
Erika, is this the most you've ever paid attention to your torso?
It's 100%. There's just things that I've never focused on in the court. Like, as you said, like with the chest one, for example, the moment I got into it, I knew I was right. But in racquetball, we're like, oh yeah, keep your chest up. But it's the millimeters and the inch of a difference.
Is that what you want, Coach?
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
Yep.
That's the open stance shuffle.
Yep.
That's what this is designed for. I mean, that's what the shuffle's designed for, so that people shuffle in the right position.
So I wonder if you would just explain a little bit about the sensor and how it works and what it's designed to actually do.
Sure, actually, I sure will. So brief 2-second science is that your brain moves your body around in the world based on a model it creates. And it creates a model by your eyes, what comes in your visual system, and by all these sensors, these receptors all over your body that tells you where your body is in time and space. When your model is flawed, like if you've ever tripped up a curb that you thought it was too lower than it was, that could be an example that your model of where your body was in the world in relation to the curb was flawed, or your model of where the curb was too high. So what the cat does, and what you saw it there is when Erika doing this, is she's feeling her posture instead of seeing her posture. Now the visual system is so dominant. So what this cat does is it beeps and vibrates when the correct position is achieved. So what you probably didn't see, in fact, if you throw that graph up there, I can explain a little bit different, is that the cat sensor continually transmit live kinematic data of position and speed, acceleration to the app. And then on the right, on the bottom, you see there's a sub part of the skin, and there's the receptors in there that feel the vibrations. So you're not getting the information about where your body is in the world from your eyes. You're feeling it with vibrations, through your skin. So essentially, there's 4 modes here too. The correction mode, which you see up top, is this is position. I want you to know it because this is correct. And keep in mind, there's a large bandwidth of movement variability. And then there's an exploration mode, which you see there, which is a lot about what Coach Winterton was talking about. Cane is naturally a creative mover. There's a big push in movement educator circles to create affordances for the athlete to figure it out themselves, which is partially what the cat does too. And then the other 2 are pretty self-explanatory. Habit break, whenever you put your racket behind your head, you can be set to beep and vibrate. Or if there's a mistake that you make that you don't know you're making, I'm sure Coach and other people use the technique where you exaggerate the mistake. You amplify it so that it becomes kind of a more salient input in your receptors, and that helps you know what to avoid. So that's how the sensor works. And what's exciting is that at the virtual elite camp that Coach talked about, we'll do the first ever live demo with a racquetball camp of this. So that's going to be fun.
Coach, you just briefly mentioned it. So talk a little bit about this. We talked about COVID and the fact that things are a little bit difficult with racquetball right now. You're doing an online camp.
Right. And this, the cat thing, I have mine. What did I do with it? Right here. I got mine hooked up on a strap. And what it allows you, because again, I talked about the lesson I taught this week. I don't want to walk up to my students and grab them and get close to them and put this stuff on in this day and age. But Zoom, they can use the cat and where they are. When Joe first told me about this, first thing I said was, this is a home run. This is unbelievable. I watched the Washington Wizards practice in our gym in Scottsdale, Arizona last August, a part of the team. And they were all in this position, and the coaches were stopping them. No, your hand should be here, not here, and all these little things that for pros, where the position of their arm and everything is so important. Joe has a WNBA basketball player. If you go to, it's on their website, right, Joe? I think.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, right. On your website with the WNBA player and the baseball player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the baseball player, he's throwing right-handed, but his left arm has to be in a certain position. That's how sophisticated they are, and that's kind of what we try to do from day one. I have never modeled my instruction based on racquetball. I have gone to all of the pro sports outside racquetball, and my theory is, if a racquetball player's playing for a champion T-shirt, and a tennis player is playing for a Mercedes, the training of the Mercedes player might be better than the training of the player playing for the T-shirt, type thing. I'm being ridiculous, but that's kind of the analogy I use. So this positioning in the future of racquetball, this is going to be really big. And my mentor, Dave Peck, is the guy that really, and Greg Peck, late Greg Peck, great man, introduced me to these concepts. And I had them anyway, but I just was doing it wrong. So anyway.
I do want to open this up for questions. If you're watching and you have a question for Erika, Joe, or Coach Winterton, feel free to put it in your chat box. And we do have one, and it's from Francisco Rios. And he says, what do you guys think that can be implemented to improve or make racquetball more attractive for new players? I mean, about the games and TV, it's really hard to see where the ball is for me. And I've been playing for several years. So what ideas do you have looking at your playing careers? Erika's still playing, obviously, your coaching careers. How do we make this sport more accessible, more visible to the general public?
Well, my point, you want me to go? Or you want to go, Erika?
I was just going to say, where I kind of can see this leading into is actually, I'm out in California right now in San Jose visiting my brother, Adam. And a big way that we're trying to not only grow the sport, but make it more accessible for newer players to learn is we just made a company called Manilla Athletics, which I heard Coach was kind of talking about earlier, and just truly breaking down the game where every single person can learn. And you don't have to learn anymore from in person, because especially with everything that's going on, but you can actually take courses online to learn how to play and depict the game and figure out how that can fit into your game. And I think the big thing, kind of as Coach said, that he's structured his coaching off of his other sports. And a big part of that is video analysis and learning from other big players. Coach, I know you can talk about that as well, just seeing what other players are doing and kind of structure our play off of that as well. And so I think a big thing to get it to other players is making it more accessible to other players and not just all the tournament players.
So from my point of view, in the looking at the ball, everybody says that. Everybody says, I can't see the ball. Well, if you've gone to a hockey match, you can't see the puck either. But they have excellent cameras and excellent replay. And if you have excellent cameras and excellent replay, you'll be able to see the racquetball. And we don't have that. Oh, well, we do have it in some places, like the U.S. Open. I got to say, you can see the ball pretty well on center court. But for the most part, that's because, and we're back to money. In the fitness industry, I could spend 9 hours talking about that. The fitness industry has killed racquetball. It killed it. And it's just the nature of the beast. People have, when I first started racquetball, you paid for court time. So I was a programmer. I was a manager, one of the most valuable people in the club, because I got paid on percentage of people that played on the courts. I got paid by tournaments and so on and so forth. So I was important. And then we went to monthly dues. The day we went to monthly dues after that, I'll never forget, the manager said, hey, Jim, would you go up and fold towels? We're having a manager's meeting. And I'm at the front desk folding towels. And here's this woman with about 9 layers of makeup on, who's never played a game of any kind in her entire life. Not an athlete. She's a head sales manager. Writing's on the wall. She knocks it dead. She's the most valuable person now on the staff. And me, I'm just handing out towels. And racquetball became an amenity in the club. And so that's and I remember going to management meetings when I first moved to Syracuse and fighting for racquetball, these long meetings and fighting for racquetball. And then I wasn't invited to meetings anymore because I fought for racquetball. They just took the courts out and didn't tell me. And I've learned to see, whenever I see someone with the measuring tape and they're out by the courts, I'm going, whoa, what are you doing? And no, we're not taking the courts out. Oh, okay. Just checking, because I'm like paranoid about it.
I'm going to ask, excuse me, Joe and TJ, and collectively, I think one of the challenges as well is how do we keep athletes who are professionals in the sport connected with the sport when they decide, you know what, the tour is not for me anymore, I'm going to retire. And sometimes we see that where players kind of drift away, and yet their experiences, their knowledge, their ability maybe to coach or develop junior programs is very possible, but sometimes doesn't happen.
I can jump in on that right away. When I retired from racquetball, I think that year was my best year. I think I spent like 2 weeks at number 6, something. But when I retired, it was mid-season. It was a tournament in December, and it was December 18th, 2010. And I remember feeling ill that morning, and I didn't know why. And then I sat up straight in bed, and my friend Anthony Herrera was staying on the floor in the hotel room with us. And I said, Anthony, I don't think I want to do this anymore. I think I'd rather be somewhere else. And then the next 6 months are a blur. I retired. I cried all the time. And then it was like an ex-boyfriend I didn't want to see, or girlfriend for that matter. And I didn't even want to look at it in TV. I couldn't even watch chess or cards or any competing on TV. But like TJ said, it really took the relationships that I was in, because I still stayed in touch with some of the folks that I had, essentially spent 20 years of my life with, ate to a hotel room and crammed in cabs in foreign countries and sprinting down the street because you got left at the restaurant to make your match, and all over the world, right? So it's the people that brought us back. So I think that I haven't played competitively since then, but I suspect that if the camaraderie is the same now as it was then, people will come back for the people, come back for the relationships. Also having what's it called, service box interview with some old lady pros probably doesn't hurt. And I think that's the right way to go, is to keep the newbies involved, keep the veterans involved. We all have institutional knowledge on how it was and how it worked then, and maybe you tweak it to work now, especially given the challenge and circumstances. So I think the fact that you're doing this is a testament to you guys. You guys know what you're doing.
Thank you.
I want to be cognizant of our time as well. And I know each of you have a business, and we've had some questions on, how do we find the tip of the week, or how do we find Erika's information? If you wouldn't mind, each of you, would you be able to, what's the best way for somebody to contact you if they have a question about what you're doing?
I can start with that. ManillaAthletics.com. Nice and simple. Check it out. Easiest way. If not, you can reach actually Adam or I at Erika@ManillaAthletics.com or Adam@ManillaAthletics.com. We kept it pretty simple. I'm on Facebook, coach's website. Kind of check us all out. It's pretty cool. We have cool stuff coming up.
Yeah, Erika actually works, and Joe, for that matter. Joe talked about coming back, and you got all nervous last year, your first elite camp, and you're like a rookie. She's out there shaking. Oh my gosh!
I was.
But I mean, so my website's Winterton Racquetball Academy. But you can also, I have a problem. I'm addicted to domains. I've got like Racquetball Boot Camp, Zombie Racquetball. I've got all these weird names that I got 80 names. But Winterton Racquetball Academy, where you can find me. I also started coaching coaches, and I'm working with some South American coaches, Felipe Mercado and Manuel Flores from Bolivia. And I just started a relationship that I think is going to be very good in the future with Gutierrez, Miguel Gutierrez, that I really like him from Colombia. We've had some good philosophical conversations. So I want to, but I mean, I'm helping South American coaches. Where's the USA coaches? I would help. And I had a long discussion with Charlie Pratt, junior coach, a couple days ago, about an hour discussion. I really feel I have something to offer to help USA coaches as well. But I don't know whether people perceive me as being arrogant or something, or I don't know what it is, but I don't get the flow from Team USA. And we tried to put together a mentoring program where we could mentor coaches. But one of the things I think people are intimidated. I know when I was a young coach, I remember stopping Steve Strandamo in the hall. I don't know if you know that guy, and cornering him and at a party and not letting him go for like 20 minutes while I talked to him. And of course, Dave Peck. I talked with Mike Yellen. I talked with Jerry Halatier. I went everywhere with those guys would come into town. Shannon Wright, Lynn Adams. These are some great, Heather Mackay, great legends of racquetball. A fact that's not known, I coached Fran Davis for years when she was still she started out on the Pro Tour. I coached her into the 80s. So anyway, so
I like how I asked you for a website and you gave me historical context there.
I'm sorry. I
Well,
can't
you know
help
what?
it.
Coach, you're the face of racquetball. There's a reason why everyone knows who you are, so that's okay. And ManillaAthletics.com. I'm so happy for you guys to start your thing. And I think we have cross links on our websites. And of course, Coach Winterton, you're the man. And my thing is panthertech.net, and it's tech without the H. And Erika, you're actually on there a few times for some testimonials and some demonstrations of the cat stuff.
It's awesome.
Yeah, there's a link. You can find us there.
Your link is on there also, Joe.
Yeah.
Tech's on there.
Oh, fantastic. Good.
Hey.
Well, an important link for all of us is lprtour.com. TJ, talk, just to close us out a little bit about the tour and what's going on right now.
The tour, I have no idea. I'm joking, but a little bit. But what we do know is that our Kansas City or teamroot.com classic event will not be August 14 to 16, and it most likely is going to move to another city. And at this point, I do not know what that city will be. Unfortunately, the club in Overland Park, Kansas, is just not comfortable with all of its restrictions hosting us in 2020. So we are looking into other options right now as to where to move that event. Fortunately, our sponsor is still all on board for still supporting the tour for that event, wherever it is. So,
don't forget about us in Arizona. We got a meeting next week.
It's another possibility. Yes.
I just put her on the spot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, my thanks to all of you for joining us this evening. Really appreciate your insight and perspectives. And of course, on behalf of myself, Tim Baghurst and TJ Bamba, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
Thanks
Thank you for having me. Thank you. Erika's great to see you, Coach.
Stay safe.
Yeah, y'all too.
Check us.